Hello, listeners of the Calvary Cast, loyal friends, family members. Thanks for joining us on another exciting, exhilarating episode. I am Graham Parker, Associate Pastor, Calvary Bible Church. Across from me is Jess Miller, lead pastor. With a freshly trimmed goatee, by the way.
I did. Trimmed it down.
Shaved it down. It's getting too hot.
Yeah. Yeah, probably just something different, I guess. I don't know.
When was the last time you were clean shaven?
Oh, boy, I don't remember. Oh, I do remember South Carolina, Bob Jones University.
Oh, we couldn't have any facial hair there?
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons we departed. But they have changed the rules
since then. Yeah. Can you ride in the same elevator with a woman now?
I don't know.
Or do they have separate stairwells?
I don't think so. No, they didn't then. I don't think so. It's been
number of years.
14, 15 years for
and
me
you
now.
weren't like an undergrad. You
No,
weren't
I was
living
in
on
seminary.
campus and things like that. Yeah.
But they had one of the, and I hope they've changed some of this now, but the seminary for me was a bad choice to go to. And part of that was because they weren't designed for people with families already and stuff. It was still so attached to the undergrad. And I was just going on the recommendation of someone else a lot and their leadership in that. And I wouldn't have made the same choice now of seminaries for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. Oh, that was interesting.
Yeah.
All that from us commenting on your facial hair.
Yeah. That you know, you never know what's going to spring from a facial hair conversation.
Is there really a better conversation to have than a facial hair conversation?
Probably, yes.
I don't know. Like that,
like
the quote from Spurgeon about a beard and nothing more manly or godly
than growing your beard
growing
or
a
whatever.
beard.
More natural, yeah.
More natural, manly, beneficial, and godly than growing a beard.
In the context, I think I just saw something on that. It was in his lectures to students, and I could be wrong on this, but it was the idea that it was used as a natural warmer for the face and neck or whatever. And so that was kind of
That's why I trim mine a little shorter in the summer. The question, though, is why don't you have a beard? I mean, what you have cannot be rightly considered a beard.
No, and you know what? I've tried, and I don't like the pattern of my beard, for one. Two is I don't know, I just like my face.
You like that sounds really...
Right. Yeah.
Like...
I don't know.
Like self-infatuated. I just like my face.
Yeah. Well, with a goatee too, you get kind of the best of both worlds because you get to shave and you feel that clean shave.
See, I don't
but you also see the beard there.
I guess it's been so long since I've done that. I don't think I'd like that. I'd feel cold and naked, and I'd probably look really weird.
You would for a day or two, but then people would get used
I'd
to
be
it.
longer than that. Yeah. I'd be a long time for me to get used to it.
No, it just depends, what you like.
You have the, as I heard one of the guys on the Babylon Bee say, you have the early 2000s youth pastor facial hair.
Yes, there you go, where they could just start bringing it out or whatever.
Yep.
This is
going way off the rails. But this is natural banter.
It is.
This is an unplanned but a natural, free-flowing conversation that is working.
It is.
Anyway, is that all you're going to say something else, but you don't have to if you don't want to?
No, we can move on.
All right. 4 minutes. And we are now transitioning into our topic du jour.
Okay.
Topic of the day, which is our book of the month for July, Delighting in the Trinity.
Yeah. Who first found this book? Was it you?
So actually you wanted to get that book by Bruce Ware on the Trinity, which is no longer published. And it was like $70 a copy. And we thought that's a little much.
Yeah. And I've learned more about the Trinity since then. I know why now that book is
no longer published.
No longer
Was
published.
it saying bad things about the Trinity?
Well, that's where we were talking about this earlier, all the controversy line and the eternal subordination of the Son and those kinds of things. And then some of his comments out of that book that he makes about the Father being... It seemed like, and I just had this because Chris was reading me some of these from his paper he wrote.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I had ever read the book on the Trinity. I read his Big Truths for Young Hearts book or whatever, and I appreciated what I read in there. But this was talking more about how the Father seemed to be greater in glory and essence in the way he was writing it. Now, I would suspect that he didn't intend what he wrote to be that.
But that's okay. That's one of the things with the Trinity, though. Like where you're trying to express some of these things, you can emphasize a point on one side, and it can be misconstrued because you're trying to not allow something else to be.
I know. And see, here's the thing. This is why the Trinity makes me nervous out of a lot of the doctrines, because it's like you can very quickly become a heretic and not even know it.
That is very much the truth.
It is, because it's for one, it is beyond. In some ways, think about the Trinity it just bends our thinking in ways that aren't comfortable to us. It's like, going to yoga for the first time, when you've been a couch potato for 20 years and you go into yoga and you're going to feel like this isn't natural to me or whatever, because it's just hard. It is. It's we're trying to discuss, define, I guess, somewhat, an infinite being beyond comprehension. So doing that is tricky.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, we came across this book. This was actually, I think, so I hit my chord here, recommended by my friend Isaac. So shout out to Isaac in case you're listening. And he said that it had given him some good thoughts about God. He had things he had never thought about before. So we grabbed a copy and we each read it and we said, this is really good.
Yeah, and really he kind of helps with that, because he actually starts in the beginning, like talking about what we're saying. Like everybody says the Trinity is impossible, which it is, and yet what God has revealed to us about himself is designed for us to know him.
Yes. That's and that's what, like, as Christians, we worship the God of the Bible, but you can't worship the God of the Bible if you don't know him. Right. And he has revealed himself as one God in three persons, triune. And so it is the duty of the Christian to try and get down to what does this mean, and how do I worship God in this way? Yep. So I think that's where delighting in the Trinity is really helpful. Just for our listeners, if you're hearing white noise in the background, it's the fan in the swamp cooler, and we're not shutting it off because it's hot.
It is very hot.
So do not. That's what that is.
Right.
So let's talk about the book a little bit.
Okay.
Should we?
Yeah, I think we should.
So we want people to read this, but we could just give our brief takeaways, best things that we enjoyed or learned. Go.
Couple things for me. First of all, and I'm just speaking in generalities now. I'm not even really bringing out much of the detail of it. And like we said, you can read that, or maybe you'll bring out some more detail. But the title, Delighting in the Trinity, an Introduction to the Christian Faith. Let me break that up into two parts of why I like this.
How you just started on the title. You're like, let me bring out the most basic thing about the book. I like the title. Yes. You wouldn't even have to read it. You're like, let me review this book. The title is really good.
Right. But the reason I like it is because we should be fostering delight in the Trinity. It shouldn't be something that we're afraid of, or that like we're like, oh, the Trinity, that's just beyond my thinking, so let's think about something else, or be content and not, study much.
Or you don't find the word Trinity in the Bible, so that kind of thing.
Because that word is a problem for some people. But the idea of delighting in God is what we should be pursuing. And I can say that the way in which he writes this, like just, some people have a different way of writing, and that's helpful in this area, almost devotional, I guess. And then bringing out aspects of the personableness of God that, really, I found it helpful to my soul. Yeah,
I thought so too.
So delighting in the Trinity, I like that. But then the idea of an introduction to the Christian faith, which is interesting because maybe we don't think about this enough, but a basic of the Christian faith, an introduction to the Christian faith, is an introduction to God in his triuneness. That is a basic fundamental element of true Christianity, and there can't be, and what he does a good job of bringing out, God isn't God apart from
triune
God, and the Christian faith couldn't be what it is, salvation in the way God has done it, unless he was triune.
Right. And that's why Christianity is so different from every other world religion, and it's rooted in the inherent character of who God is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that, I really appreciated that. Some of the details of the book and getting, the idea that the eternality of God the Father, Son, and Spirit, and of course I knew that before, whatever. But the thought of He's always the Father, because I've always, we open up our Bible to Genesis 1, and we read, "In the beginning, God created." So we maybe are used to orienting our thinking towards God as Creator first and foremost, but before He was Creator in eternity past, He's Father. And that, I don't know why that struck me so much, but that that eternal nature of who. So even as he quotes in here from John Calvin, the idea that when we're looking at nature, we're supposed to be reflecting on God's fatherliness in how he governs his creation and us.
I think that was probably the biggest point for me too, that is just in that first chapter where he's talking about God as our Father, thinking of him first because that's eternally what he was, not creator or ruler. And I think the difference is because of that, and he talks about the fatherly nature, like we're invited into that, like we enjoy him as Father.
Right.
If you think of God first as a judge, right, that's a different view or understanding of God.
Right.
And that's, as he points out, that's not who he has eternally been.
Mm-hmm. But we do want to make sure that we, and this is, you and I talked about this before, the idea is, though, you cannot relate to God as Father.
Right.
Unless you are in Christ, his Son. Because if you are outside of Christ, then that is not the case. You do not have this relationship with God as Father.
Right. And I think, too, we talked about when we were both reading through this, because that first chapter, when he's talking about especially God as Father, there are parts of it, not cringe is not the right word, but you're like, is he placing too much of an emphasis on this at the expense of other attributes or how God has revealed himself? And as he works through the book, I think you go, no, I don't think he's doing that. I think you really see where his argument is going. So if people get into that and like, why is he diminishing God as creator? And that's not the right word. Diminishing is not the right word. But why is he emphasizing the fatherliness of God over these other aspects at the beginning? So stick with it. I thought the other thing too that I thought was interesting was he was talking about the triune nature of God as opposed to single person gods, right? Like and he talks about gods of other religions like Muhammad or whatever. The fact that they are single person means that they are by nature selfish, right? And so they need other creatures to worship them. Love is not an overflowing thing out of them, where the Father, the Son, and the Spirit have eternally existed in this wonderful nature of love.
Right.
They didn't need, creation doesn't add anything to who God is. So we are just experiencing that overflow. And I think he talks about uses a phrase, something to the fountain, is the Father is like an overflowing flood of love to us, and we are recipients of that.
Right.
So your understanding of the Trinity is really important there. I think those are kind of big things for me. Anything else for you?
Yeah, as far as this book, not necessarily. We won't. I'm not gonna bring out anything any more detail, but just those are really good things. And even as I'm just thumbing through it right now, I can see tons of highlights and underlines that I made. So I think if you read it, if you work through it, I think you'll find different things. And actually, I've read a lot of it twice. Not the whole book, but a lot of it twice. And I plan to read it again. I mean, to read it all twice. And part of that is, too, because I'll mention this now. In Sunday, or in September, our Sunday evening programs will jump back in. And so we're going to have a 5 o'clock study here at the church. And I'll be teaching that, and I think we're going to start with discussing the Trinity and talking about that, and then we're going to look at some of the historical development of that within the Christian church, which I found fascinating to be reviewing back over that this summer, and thinking about, what evolved into the Nicene Creed and then the Athanasian Creed, and these that just talked specifically about the Trinity, and even in the ideas that this doctrine of the Trinity has been attacked, starting with Arian and Arianism, Sabellianism. Those are two things that we'll talk about in that class, but seeing how then using those, God helped the church come together and kind of craft a definitive statement about who God is, as much as we can know from Scripture.
Right. The Orthodox, this is what the church universally, to be Orthodox, you need to believe these things about God as he has revealed himself in the Bible, and those creeds and whatnot help condense some of those things down.
Yeah. So I was thinking about, for some, they think about, wow, this is really going to make my mind hurt to think about the Trinity and that. But it is, Jesus said, in quoting from the Shema, but he said, the greatest commandment is you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and then he uses the word mind. And our minds should be given to, as much as we can, the contemplation, the study, being willing to exercise our minds and thinking, knowing the fruit will come.
Right.
If you sow to the Spirit, you're going to reap the Spirit. And I think, and that's maybe what we can talk about here for a minute, like how has thinking about the Trinity, maybe as this book is a springboard, for you, me, how has that borne fruit, even in any attention we've given to it with our minds? How has that borne fruit in our lives or ministries?
Is that a question?
Yeah, maybe we could just throw that out.
I was thinking about, because I've been thinking about the nature of Trinitarian worship, and on a Sunday morning, that our worship should be Trinitarian, right? We are worshiping the Father through the Son. We worship the Son as we exalt Jesus. The Father is glorified. And it is the work of the Spirit that enables us to do that. It is the Son that is making our worship acceptable to the Father. It is the Spirit that is opening our eyes to see Jesus and understand the Word. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that when we understand the Trinity and we're thinking deeply about it, we should understand, like, just say for a Sunday morning, that's what's happening.
Yeah. You're more in tune to it, right?
Right.
You're more conscious of Trinitarian worship.
Right.
And I think that for me as well. And even in praying, you're conscious of praying to the Father in the name of the Son. Right. You even understand the Spirit's aiding you in this. And I think it just has helped me become more aware of God as who he is in my life. So...
And I think when you understand, too, the roles of each member of the Trinity, right? So, say, in prayer or just in life in general, if I understand that the Father has ordained and decreed and willed that things should happen, and I understand, we're getting a phone call, somebody calling into the studio, they want to input as well. When I understand the Father's work, and then I understand the work of the Son, especially in terms of salvation and forgiveness and his interceding and advocating for me now. Like I rejoice over that. And then I understand the Spirit's work of conviction in my heart and applying these things. And the Spirit is exalting Jesus, and as Jesus is exalted, the Father is glorified. All of that. And so I'm thinking about that, like as I read my Bible in the morning and as I pray, all of those things. So a Trinitarian focus.
Your prayer and your devotion, your worship can become more personable with God. Because what do you, like, sometimes instead of just saying, God, help me today not to sin.
Yeah.
Okay. You could be saying, Father, I want to glorify you by not sinning.
You love me as your child. You've adopted me into your family.
Thank you for Jesus who never sinned. Help me to get my eyes on Jesus, and by your Spirit produce the fruit in me of love and self-control so that I don't sin, because it's the Spirit's empowerment as you're looking to Jesus and you're praying to the Father for this. I mean, it enriches your relationship with who he is.
Because like so many times I think if you don't understand this, right, you're praying to a generic God,
Right.
an impersonal, just other force out there, essentially.
Right.
If you don't understand God as He has revealed Himself in the Bible,
Yeah.
or you do things like, you could wrongly worship God and attribute, things to the sun that you're not doing.
The cliche answer that I just heard a message the other day, a lecture actually was what it was, is somebody praying, Father, thank you for dying on the cross for my sins,
right,
or whatever.
Or pray things like Daddy Jesus or Father Jesus or something like that.
Right.
That would not be appropriate.
No, so the more we think about who God is, the more our relationship with Him is going to grow, and our relationalness with Him is going to grow.
Yes. We're
going to be more conscious of Him in our lives, and more appreciation of each of the roles and functions of, in Ephesians 1, as Paul introduces that salvation song to the Ephesians, he talks about the Father choosing, the Son redeeming, and the Spirit sealing, and they are one, but they each as distinct persons within the one Godhead fulfilled roles for us, fulfilled saving activities on our behalf. So I don't know. It's really neat.
It's very practical is
right.
what we're trying to say. This is not some esoteric theological argument. It's very practical. It's very devotional.
Yep.
And so going back to Reeve's book, that's why it's so helpful, is he helps you understand the theological, biblical arguments for it, but then says this is really practical as well.
Very practical. I was just going to read this from James White. So as people are thinking about the Trinity, he says, if we wish to know God truly, we must be willing to allow Him to reveal to us what He wants us to know, and He must be free as to how He wants to reveal it. He has given us a treasure trove of truth about Him, but He has not deemed it proper to reveal everything there is to know, if such is even possible. So we've got to be willing, as we go into Scriptures, to let God just reveal Himself to as He is, and He is triune, and yet we also have to accept a limitation on what we get to know, and we don't want to cross too much into speculation.
And that's where all bad theology comes from, is people going kind of off the rails.
Yeah.
And we're trying to
the very first one, the idea that the Son, how could it logically be this three in one? And so the Son must be a created being somewhat lesser than God.
Right.
Arianism, and or modalism, or Sabellianism, whereas it's God's three faces, how He appears to us, or what have you. Sometimes as the Father, sometimes as the Son, sometimes as the Spirit. Modalism is a heresy as well. So it's one of those things, like, we have to allow God to just say who He is, and we accept that, and then accept limitations on what fully we can know. Right.
Yep. So. Perfect. Well, let's stop it there. We'll do another podcast some other time on maybe some of the biblical arguments for the Trinity. I think we could just say for people, to sum it up in short, one, you see Scripture very clearly saying that God is one. Mm-hmm. It's very clear that we worship one God, monotheistic. But then we see the Father, Son, and the Spirit, and each of them are divine.
Right.
Right. And you see how they work together, and they're co-equal, co-eternal in power and glory, as one of the confessions says, something like that. So we'll do another podcast on that next time.
Okay.
Maybe.
Always say maybe. That way it doesn't seal us into a...
Right.
Let your maybe be maybe. Let your yes be yes, your no be no, and your maybe be maybe.
Yeah. And in the podcast world, we can say, yes, we will do that, and then not do it. It won't be lying. It'll just be... We have the freedom to change things with our podcast.
Plus, I don't know if I want to take all of my first lessons for that class and put them into here. And then
okay. So then we won't do that.
Maybe.
And then you come on Sunday night and you can go, okay, I want to hear more about this.
Right. Starting in September.
If
you come this Sunday night, you'll be early. You'll just have to wait for 2 more months.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, well, we hope this conversation's been helpful for you today. Again, our goal is to help the people of Calvary Bible Church follow Christ by becoming better readers and students of the Bible. If you're not a part of our church, our hope and prayer is that our conversations will help you love the Scriptures more and serve your local church better. We'd love to hear from you, get feedback on what we've discussed, or you can send us topics on things you'd like us to discuss. So you can email us at thecalvarycast@gmail.com, or if you're part of our church, just come up and talk to us, send us a text, or give us a phone call. In Calvary, we exist for the glory of God, the good of his people, and the Great Commission. So until next time.